This is Sean Radcliff. Welcome to another episode of Preservation Oaks. In this series, we introduce you to professionals from museums, cultural, genealogical, and historical societies across the United States. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the program. Hey, good day, everyone. Thanks for being here. Hey, we got a great program for you today. For this episode, we remain in the Wolverine state of Michigan, a great state with a marvelous and rich history. Today, we greet Ms. JoAnne Miller and Mr. Darin Sheffer from the Hillsdale County Historical Society, located in Hillsdale, Michigan. Hillsdale County is nestled in the picturesque landscape of southern Michigan and offers a blend of natural beauty, rich history, and vibrant communities. From its rolling hills to its charming small towns, this region has much to offer residents and visitors alike. One of the notable aspects of Hillsdale County is its diverse geography. The county is characterized by its gently rolling hills, fertile farmland, and numerous lakes and rivers. This scenic backdrop provides ample opportunities for outdoor recreation, including fishing, boating, hiking, and camping. Whether you're exploring the peaceful shores of Baw Bees Lake or hiking the trails of the county, there's no shortage of natural beauty to enjoy. In addition to its natural attractions, Hillsdale County boasts a wealth of historical landmarks and cultural heritage. The city of Hillsdale itself is home to numerous historic buildings and sites, including the Hillsdale County Courthouse and the Hillsdale College campus. History enthusiasts can delve into the county's past at the Hillsdale County Historical Society Museum, which features exhibits on everything from Native American artifacts to the Civil War era. Hillsdale County is also known for its vibrant art scene and tight-knit communities. Throughout the year, residents and visitors can enjoy a variety of cultural events, including art festivals, concerts, and theater productions. The county is home to talented local artists and musicians whose work adds to the area's creative energy. Furthermore, Hillsdale County is renowned for its strong sense of community and civic engagement. Residents take pride in supporting local businesses and organizations, fostering a close-knit network of entrepreneurs and community leaders. From farmers markets to volunteer opportunities, there are countless ways to get involved and make a positive impact in Hillsdale County. Overall, Hillsdale County offers a harmonious blend of natural beauty, historical charm, and community spirit. Whether you're seeking outdoor adventures, cultural experiences, or simply a place to call home, this vibrant region has something for everyone to enjoy. Hey, I'm Sean Radcliff, and I'm coming to you from Salt Lake City, and this is Preservation Oaks, the original talk program on MicroStream Radio, where we feature information about museums, cultural and heritage institutions, associations, historical and genealogical societies, and history-focused media creators across the United States. By the way, our main platform is preservationoaks.podbean.com, but you can find us on nearly all podcast platforms as well as Rumble, Getter, Minds, TikTok, Facebook, Odyssey, and YouTube. So wherever you listen to the program, I appreciate it very much when you like, comment, follow, or subscribe. If you're interested in being a guest on our program, or if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to email us at preservationoaks@gmail.com. We're incredibly grateful when you spread the word about our program to your friends, colleagues, and beyond. Your support in expanding our audience helps shine a light on the unsung heroes of Preservation Oaks, bringing them the recognition they deserve. Thank you for helping us raise awareness. Unlike many podcasts, we don't seek financial contributions from our listeners at all. We make no money. We do this work to recognize these wonderful organizations and to allow them to share the excellent work they're doing within their communities. We simply ask for your help in sharing our program and helping it grow. The individuals we feature on our podcast are real-life heroes. They dedicate themselves to protecting, preserving, and educating others about our history each day. They are the backbone of our nation, and it's crucial that we support their efforts. They work tirelessly to safeguard our heritage, ensuring that future generations can learn from and appreciate our past. The true preservation of our history and culture happens at the local level through the dedication of museums, historical, and genealogical associations and societies. So we urge you to promote this podcast and support your local society. Together we can ensure that our rich heritage is preserved for generations to come. I'd like to thank you very much for your support. On our next episode of Preservation Oaks, we meet with the Historic Ottawa Beach Society and Mr. Dan Ament, the board president. The mission of HOBS is to foster cultural and environmental stewardship of Michigan's historic Ottawa Beach by preserving and interpreting its wonders, memories, and stories. Its first major project has been to work with Ottawa County to renovate the historic pump house and build associated restroom facilities in order to convert the building into the new Pump House Museum and Learning Center. This was completed successfully, and now the Pump House Museum has been recognized as making a significant contribution to the cultural and educational life of Park Township and the West Michigan area. The Park Township supervisor has said that HOBS is Historic Ottawa Beach Society, and the Pump House Museum were the best investment in a community nonprofit that the township had made. Learn more about this wonderful achievement on our next episode of Preservation Oaks. All right, that being said, let's get this show snapping. Let's drink some tea, some Twinings tea. Love Twinings tea. Here's a bio of our guests today, JoAnne Miller and Darin Sheffer. JoAnne Miller has always been fascinated with her own family history. As a child, asking her grandmother endless questions about her mom. After retiring, JoAnne joined the Hillsdale County Historical Society and expanded her fascination with historical research to that of her county. She manages the website and writes the society newsletter, as well as giving tours of the poorhouse and presentations to groups. Darin Sheffer is a lifelong Hillsdale County resident. His interest in local and U.S. history started at a very young age. In high school, Darin was the recipient of the Hillsdale County Historical Society Student History Award. He has served on the board of the society for over 20 years and is currently serving as its vice president and curator. His spare time is spent searching for treasures to add to the Historical Society collection, as well as his personal collections. All right. Welcome to the program, JoAnne and Darin.
Hi. Hi, Sean. Thank you for having us.
You are most welcome. JoAnne and Darin, how would you describe the unique character and history of Hillsdale County to someone who's never been there?
We really think that our history reflects that of many towns on the frontier of the expanding U.S. Not in specifics, but certainly in the way people came hoping for a better life and to maybe become who they never could have been back in the East. We had young men coming here with no financial backing from their families, no money of their own, a minimal education, but they were ready to work hard. They were ready to take some risks And they were indeed hoping to make a better life for themselves. Not many women came to the frontier. So many of the men had to go back to where they came from, a lot of them from New York State, to find women to marry. This was not a romantic kind of a marriage. It was a businesslike. And in many cases, it became a marriage of love. But if a man was working hard, he wanted to have a reason to do so, and his family certainly gave him that reason. When the women arrived on the frontier, they felt it was important to establish churches and schools and a social structure. In other words, they brought civilization to the frontier.
Yeah.
Hillsdale County is a beautiful county. It's dominated by hills and dales, especially in the center of the county. And it's also the headwaters of 5 major watersheds, 2 of which drain into Lake Erie and the other 3 into Lake Michigan. It's not surprising that our county has about 350 ponds and 42 lakes, in addition to numerous streams and creeks. And it's also not a surprise that many of our early industries were powered by mill wheels. We are one of the poorest of the 83 counties in Michigan in income, but we are one of the richest in the willingness of our people to volunteer their time and energy. We have a lot of the small towns in this county who present festivals throughout the year, and it's all through volunteer effort.
Well, you're amazingly located, I'll tell you. When you look at your favorite map app, and listeners, I encourage you to do that, look at Hillsdale County because it's just wonderfully situated. It's only 70 miles from the capital of Lansing, and it's just green. I mean, it's just verdant. It's just a wonderful place.
Yes, it is. And we are actually one of the tri-state places. We touch both Indiana and Ohio, and our society owns a tri-state marker, a very rough marker that was left at the tri-state area and was removed when crews came through to actually blacktop the roads when we were going from the dirt roads to something a little bit easier to get along on.
Huh, that's very cool. What is a tri-state marker anyway?
Oh, ours is just a tall hunk of stone. It doesn't have any shape.
Okay.
And it has a very rough INOH and MICH.
Oh, I see. So someone in the past placed it there to mark the intersection of 3 states.
Yes, they did.
Okay, I get it. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was dug up in 1936. I don't know when it was established.
Wow. And do you have that in your possession?
Yeah, it's in front of our Fairgrounds Museum.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Who knows when they put it there, huh?
I don't know.
I believe there may be some graffiti on it that dates it to the 1880s.
Well, what are some of your favorite stories or anecdotes from Hillsdale County's past?
We have one about Hillsdale College, which is absolutely rare. In 1844, Spring Arbor, which is 25 miles north of Hillsdale, established a college, and their college was established with 5 students, one of them a woman, one principal who was 27 years old and had just graduated from Oberlin, and they met in a leaky old store. But it was not an auspicious beginning. At the same time, it was. From the very beginning, the Free Will Baptists, who were the ones establishing this college, were anti-slavery. And from the beginning, they accepted women and minorities. It wasn't until 1850, however, that they were awarded a charter so they could confer degrees. And the town of Spring Arbor really didn't appreciate what they had. And they didn't have financial support going to the college there. And it got to the point where the professors, who were really very good, and it grew rapidly, and the professors there decided that they weren't getting the support they needed from Spring Arbor, and might be better off looking for another town that would appreciate them more and would be on a railroad line, because that was how people were moving easily. The people in Hillsdale were having kind of the same thoughts. the town fathers were thinking, gosh, we're getting to be pretty important. We need to have a college here. And the two groups got together, and there was an initial enthusiasm that was just enormous. The assumption was that the charter would be transferred to Hillsdale College, which would be the new college, and that all the stuff, the books and everything else that goes along with being a college, and the professors, of course, would come to Hillsdale. Well, that really didn't sit well with the people in Spring Arbor. Suddenly they got kind of like, well, this is our college. We don't want to support it, but we certainly don't want anybody else to have it.
All right.
Yeah. So here we have two requirements. We have to have the original charter that was set up for Spring Arbor come to Hillsdale College, and they had to have classes in effect from the end of the Spring Arbor days to the beginning of the Hillsdale days. And that was not going to be something that Spring Arbor went along with. And they got really kind of violent. They were threatening some of the professors with tar and feather. And so there was a real cloak and dagger story about how they got, first of all, the charter out. One of the trustees hid the charter from Spring Arbor under straw in his wagon box, and he got it through Jackson County and into Hillsdale County, going through guards that had been set up by Spring Arbor to stop something like that from happening. And so having lost that round, Spring Arbor said, well, you can't have any of our books or our apparatus that we have for chemistry or anything like that. The excitement that had initially just gripped Hillsdale, with a lot of people stepping forward to give money, make generous subscriptions to build the college and the endowments, the laying of the cornerstone on July 4th, 1853, all of that was great excitement. But then with Spring Arbor digging its heels in, that excitement began to wane a little bit. And finally, Hillsdale College decided, let's just start all over again. Forget the charter, forget Spring Arbor. And one of their supporters was elected to the state senate in 1854, and he promptly went about sponsoring a law that allowed special charters for denominational schools. This was written for Hillsdale College, but of course it was written generally so that it would cover others and not be so suspicious. On May 17th, 1855, Hillsdale College was incorporated under that new law, and they got their charter. Now this part's really interesting. Most of the schools in the area here were just to 8th grade, and a lot of the kids didn't go to school to 8th grade. They were needed to work at home. There were very, very few opportunities for kids to go to high school. They were either needed or the schools just were not available. So most of the students who initially came to Hillsdale College were in what they called their preparatory department, which was a high school. And it prepared these kids to go to college. And that was, of course, when extensive mathematics and Greek and Latin were the underpinnings. Again, with Hillsdale College, just as with Spring Arbor College, from the beginning, women and non-white men were accepted into the college. Although there was a feeling that women just weren't up to getting the classical education, which included Greek, Latin, and mathematics. And so a specially designed ladies' course was established for them, where they did things like art and the homemaking type skills. However, there were very stubborn women, and they decided that they would just go ahead and apply to the classical degree, and they did it.
Fantastic. I tell you, I would be very proud to go to Hillsdale College today. When I look at Hillsdale College and the buildings and whatnot, I'm just awed. It's just a fantastic campus.
It is gorgeous. They are very careful when they build to be sure that they have the money in hand before they build anything. And it is a beautiful campus, and it sits on a hill. So it's kind of dramatic too.
In your opinion, what makes Hillsdale County's Historical Society unique or special compared to others in the state?
We believe ours is different in the fact that since our inception in 1965, The Hillsdale County Historical Society has been a completely volunteer organization. So for almost 60 years now, we've existed solely on volunteers, money, donations, fundraisers, and it's all been done, with people who are giving their time freely. And so we feel that's quite unique. There are no paid positions within the Historical Society. Quite regularly, large historical societies do have a paid staff of some sort, but Hillsdale has always been a volunteer organization.
And he won't say this, but I will. I'm 80 years old, and I am the only retired person on the board.
Oh,
Everybody
fantastic.
else is still employed. So they're a bunch of young pups.
Wonderful. And God bless you for being 80 years old. That's wonderful. Wonderful news. Such a commitment from the community. That's great.
Yeah, and that's what it has been, because you think back, 60 years of history of the board, how many people have volunteered and been a part of it. I don't know it even an estimated number, but boy, I would guess it would be hundreds of people.
Yeah. What's the population of Hillsdale anyway?
Well, the population of the county is around 46,000.
Oh,
So
great.
it's a very rural Michigan county. And Hillsdale City itself is around 8,000, and we're the largest city.
By far.
By far.
And the county seat, right?
And the county seat, correct.
Yeah, that's nice. That's a nice population. So what's the history of the county?
You have to start with the Northwest Territory. The Jay Treaty of 1794 reserved the Northwest Territory originally for the native people. And, as we've seen time and time again, those treaties really don't stand when the United States government decides that they need the land. And it did last until the United States government decided, well, we really need to get people across the Appalachian Mountains and settling into the Louisiana Territory and the Northwest Territory, because that's what we're meant to do. And in 1821, the Treaty of Chicago was made with the people who live in this area, the Potawatomi and the Chippewa and the Ottawa, that they would sell their land to the United States government. And then the United States government sold very cheaply to settlers coming in. So that was one part of it. But the second part was that the Appalachian Mountains still were there. And that's why people had remained on the eastern seaboard for so long. And even though you could go through the Cumberland Gap, you couldn't come north from there because the Great Black Swamp in northwest Ohio and northeast Indiana made it impossible to bring wagons. And of course, you wanted to bring families. This was not a trapper trader situation anymore. They wanted people to actually settle, white people.
Okay.
So into this breach stepped DeWitt Clinton, who was the governor of New York. And he decided that he would establish a canal that would go from the Hudson River to Lake Erie. And that would be a rise of 568 feet. He was derided. Oh my gosh, it was called Clinton's Big Ditch and Clinton's Folly, and people made such fun of him, and he stuck to his guns. They broke ground in 1817 and actually finished in 1825 after an army of stone masons, many of them from Ireland, built 83 locks and 18 aqueducts. Can you imagine?
No.
18 aqueducts. So anyway, it was finally finished, and then the Northwest Territory was open to white settlers, and that's why we have so many people in our original group of white settlers in Hillsdale County who are from New York, because they took the Erie Canal. So then once they get to Lake Erie, which is on our southeastern side, they now needed to get across Michigan. And in 1837, we became a state, and the first governor was named Stevens T. Mason. He was a very young fellow, and he had this great idea to duplicate DeWitt Clinton's canal system, because it would be so easy to get people from the eastern side of Michigan to the western side. And of course, those 2 canals that he planned just didn't make it. But he did settle on 3 railroad routes going from east to west. And there was also a major road following what was known as the Sauk Trail that had been used by the natives for hundreds of years, that roughly went from Detroit to Chicago. That was widened to 100 feet and called the Chicago Military Road. And then that just really opened up southern Michigan. Now we get to Hillsdale County. Now, Hillsdale County, thinking about where Indiana and Ohio are, Michigan is north of that, and it's just pretty much in the middle of the southern line of Michigan. The first people who came as a family into Hillsdale County were Moses and Mary Allen. He was one of the original surveyors of the Chicago Military Road, and they didn't establish anything except their own farm, and which was known as Allen Prairie. They came in 1827. And we have a lot of really cool stuff in our society, but some is cooler than others. And we do have the Allen Bible and the Allen Sugar Box. And we share those with our friends in the Allen Area Historical Society when they have their special day. Benaiah Jones with his wife, Lois, and their children came the next year, and they lived in a grain shack that the Allens had. Benaiah Jones and his sons spent that year working in the area that would become Jonesville. They worked on how to plat it so that they could then sell off their individual pieces of their Jonesville and make a lot of money. They had bought the land quite cheaply from the United States government, of course, to begin with. We're forgetting the most important group of people, and that is the original people who lived here, the Potawatomi. By the time the white settlers came to Hillsdale County, Bobbies was their leader, and they ranged all over the county, and they were a peaceful group, and they were welcoming for the most part, to the white settlers, helped them when they were sick, and they kind of assumed that the white settlers, even though they seemed to live in a strange way, sticking to their home and just an area around their home, the Potawatomi would still range around. They'd go visiting. They would sometimes, when they were away from their usual home fires, they would stop in somebody's cabin, and the people who lived there would find them in front of the fireplace the next morning. A guy named Ben Seeley was a favorite of Chief Bobbies, and Bobbies visited him very often, and so Ben Seeley made him a chair. And here's another item that is in that everything's special, but this is more special. We do have that chair that was used by Bobbies.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask our curator, Darin, to cover his ears. I have actually sat down in that chair.
Oh my
very
goodness.
Carefully.
I guess I didn't know that.
You not only got the Allen stuff from the first settler there in the county, but you've got the chair of Bobby or Bobbies.
Yeah. Bobbies.
Bobbies.
Whoa.
Yeah, it is very cool.
Yeah, it's very special.
They did the Potawatomi lived quite nicely with the white settlers for a number of years, but even though Chief Bobbies was not a signatory of the 1821 Treaty of Chicago, he was still under that requirement that he move his people away. And he was able to hold off that move for a long time, saying, "Oh, my wife is ill. We can't move quite yet." Finally, in 1840, the federal government sent in mounted federal agents to essentially drive the Potawatomi off their lands to a reservation in Iowa. School was let out. The white settlers were generally just incredibly upset by the whole thing. They lined the Chicago Road, which had been the Sauk Trail, and waved their handkerchiefs, and many of them crying as the natives, our Potawatomi, walked very stoically off their land.
That's a sad story.
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it is.
And there was nothing they could do about it.
Nothing they could do about it. I mean, isn't that the story of our country?
Yeah, that's sad. Huh. And are the Potawatomi back in the county today?
No,
Okay. So are they still in Iowa?
I'm sure they are. We don't have, I have gone into the Mitchell Research Center to see if I could follow up on any of that, and I've had absolutely no luck. I don't know.
Okay. So
There is a local historical site, Sean, that was the last campsite of the Potawatomi as they were rounded up. And that's on Waldron Road, Waldron and Squawfield, which in today's more politically correct world, Squawfield Road, I'm surprised we still have a road named that.
Yeah.
But for many years, obviously after the Native Americans left, the property was owned by white settlers and a house was built on that property probably 15, 20 years ago. I'm not quite certain if it is the Potawatomis, but a Native American tribe did regain ownership of that corner property, and they held a ceremony reclaiming that corner as their own.
Okay.
And so there is a historical marker on that site as it being the last campsite of the Potawatomi in Hillsdale County. They burned the house that was on the property as part of that ceremony. They cleared the land, and now it's all grown back with native plants and trees. So, as I say, I'm not quite certain which tribe owns that land now.
Now, is
But
that official?
It is.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Good. Okay.
Yep. So I
Fantastic.
guess in a small way, they did reclaim a piece of their land.
Yeah, good. Maybe they'll come back and have ceremonies there every year or something, you know?
There's an extremely large amount of artifacts found in that part of our county as well, which, the whole county, there's some unbelievable Native American artifact collections, and we were the lucky recipient of some of those in the past. And we do have a very nice collection of rock tools and arrowheads.
Well,
Yeah.
it could be that there's a relationship brewing in your future. That's good.
Yeah.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, that'd be really great.
Another interesting aspect to touch on something that JoAnne talked about was the railroad. For a period of time, that southern line, it was proposed in 1837 to go from Monroe, Michigan to New Buffalo. There was already a line existing, but when Michigan became a state in 1837, one of the first things the state did was get a loan from the U.S. government for $5 million to expand the railroad. And so the southern line, Henry Waldron, at age 18, was a surveyor for the civil engineers for the Michigan Southern Railroad. He was exploring the routes from Adrian to Marshall, Michigan. We're kind of in the middle of that, I guess. And so Mr. Waldron came through this area and decided it would be a great place for the railroad to come through. So the railroad construction had started, but by 1845, the state had spent $4 million of that $5 million government loan, and that southern line actually stopped in Hillsdale City. So for several years, Hillsdale was the end of the line, and that is one of the main things that helped Hillsdale prosper as the county seat, and over, generally just in the area is the spot for commerce and trade.
Well, they would have built like an engine terminus and repair station and everything at the end of the line, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And, so for a time, from all over southern Michigan, they did finally extend it through Sturgis, and it dropped down into Indiana and ended in Chicago. So that actually became the first line to make it to Chicago in 1852. But for those years before it actually made it that far, the farmers from all over northern Ohio, northeastern Indiana, and southern Michigan had to bring all their grain to Hillsdale to have it shipped to Toledo.
Wow.
And being on the railroad line was so important. in Hillsdale County that we had some rather strange things happening there. One of our towns, Camden, actually dismantled itself. They took down all their buildings and moved a couple of miles so they could be on the line.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, and we had a town, Jerome, which is now, I think, really just a couple of houses, but there were neighbors, and their names were Jerome Smith and Mary Beagle, and they planned a town on the railroad line. They named it Jerome, not Mary, and they didn't register a plat or anything, but they did put up kind of a rudimentary depot so that they could be a town on the railroad, and they could advertise themselves as such. And there was a post village of North Adams. North Adams is now a decent size. It's a little town, but it's decent size for a small county like this one. But it was just a post village. They just kind of brought the postage through there. And the people built a station, a freight house, and dedicated siding. And that was before they had enough buildings to even call it a village. So that the railroad was just really something that was a desirable place to be.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Maybe not in Hillsdale. At the height of the railroad boom, we had 22 trains coming through every day, and there were irritated letters to the editor complaining about how cattle cars were parked at the crossings where people had to go through the train couplings to get to the other side of the train. And the cattle, of course, were pooping.
Oh, yeah.
It made it a little messy.
I was going to say, when you think of the canal, getting back to the canals, and you think about the railroads, think about the alternative back then. If you were trying to go overland without the railroad, without the canal, you were faced with horses and oxen, or walking. And those roads, as soon as it rained, you were mired down in mud.
Mm-hmm.
Or you were trying to go through a forest. It was
Yeah,
not pretty at all.
Yeah,
No.
if there was even a road at all to follow.
Yeah.
So many of our pioneers, there weren't roads. They were cutting their own way as they made their way across.
Exactly.
And there were bears and wolves.
Yeah, it was terrible. So if you were on a canal, it was easy sailing. I mean, it might have been dangerous if you sank or something, but it was easy sailing compared to going overland. And on a railway, oh, heck
Yep.
yeah. It was carved out for you. All you had to do was go straight through.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was nice. It was like our super highway or our expressways or whatever our freeways of today. It was wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Great
Big
stuff.
difference.
Thank you for that history. Makes a lot of sense why Hillsdale grew and became what it became.
And yeah, actually the big faux pas of the state trying to get involved in business like that led to a change in the Michigan Constitution in 1850, forbade the direct investment in construction like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yes, because they found a lot of the money was scammed, and obviously the railroad barely got off the ground in those 4 years. Most of the budget was spent and it hadn't gotten anywhere. So eventually the state did sell off the railroads, and several of Hillsdale City's pioneers became very wealthy as they were shareholders in the Southern Michigan Railroad.
Wow. And we think, we've got problems today. Think about that. All that money disappearing, right?
Yeah, they got pennies on the dollar back
Oh,
on the
yeah.
state sale. But many very wealthy people resulted locally. Henry Waldron, the man who surveyed the line, became a very wealthy Hillsdale resident, as did one of his friends, Charles Mitchell. They both started building warehouses along that railroad, and they became very wealthy.
Oh, yeah. They were the Amazon warehouse of that time.
They were. You had to have a place to store the shipments at the end of the line, because after Hillsdale, it had to be taken by stage, wagon, or hand.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, JoAnne, Darin, the music in the background means it's time to take a break for a few minutes.
All righty.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, listeners, we'll be right back after these important messages.
Are you passionate about preserving history and making a difference in your community? Look no further than the Hillsdale County Historical Society. The Hillsdale County Historical Society is calling all history enthusiasts, community champions, and volunteers to join their mission of preserving the rich heritage of Hillsdale County for generations to come. Whether you're a seasoned historian or just eager to lend a helping hand, there's a place for you at the Hillsdale County Historical Society. Dive into the fascinating stories of Hillsdale's past as a volunteer at the Will Carleton Poorhouse or the Little White House on the Hill. Help them bring history to life by assisting with special events, leading guided tours, or contributing your skills in research and archival work. Look them up on Facebook at Hillsdale County Historical Society or visit the website at www.hillsdalehistoricalsociety.org to learn more about volunteer opportunities and how you can get involved. Ready to make a difference? Send them an email at hillsdalehistoricalsociety@gmail.com to become a part of their dedicated team. Together, let's preserve the past and build a brighter future with the Hillsdale County Historical Society. Your passion, our history. Let's make memories together. Hillsdale County Historical Society, where every volunteer makes a difference.
Nothing to do? Feeling bored and blue? Well, we've got just the thing for you. Tune into Preservation Oaks at preservationoaks.podbean.com and unlock a world of wonders waiting for you.
Step into a realm of endless listening pleasure with each and every episode of Preservation Oaks. From fascinating locations to captivating topics and history galore, you'll be hooked from the start and talking about it tomorrow.
Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity. Follow us now at preservationoaks.podbean.com to get notified instantly whenever a new episode drops.
That's right. Jump over to preservationoaks.podbean.com and treat yourself to an array of excellent episodes. You'll have an almost inexhaustible supply of great information right at your fingertips.
And there's more. Every other week, a brand new episode will drop and grace your ears. Exclusive interviews, intriguing history, and special topics will keep you coming back for more.
Find Preservation Oaks on almost every podcast and social media platform worldwide. We bring you unique perspectives, engaging discussions, and everything you need to learn about museums, cultural and heritage institutions, historical and genealogical societies, and history-focused media creators across the United States.
Get ready for an extraordinary listening experience. With interesting guests, captivating topics, fantastic book reviews to aid your family history journey, and special history-focused media creators, you won't be able to stop listening.
So, don't wait any longer. Head over to preservationoaks.podbean.com and indulge in the luxury and convenience of dozens of episodes ready for you to enjoy.
Preservation Oaks is here to enrich the world and help you to keep on giving and keep on living the good life.
Preservation Oaks Podcast, your gateway to history, culture, and fascinating stories. Follow us now at preservationoaks.podbean.com and open the door to a whole new world of knowledge and entertainment.
Just a reminder about the military holidays we observe annually in these United States. Armed Forces Day is to acknowledge those still in uniform serving our nation. Veterans Day is for those who served and have hung up the uniform. We honor those who served. Memorial Day is for those who never made it out of their uniform. We reflect on those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country. Please teach your children to observe these days each year.
And now, back to Preservation Oaks.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Thomas Radcliff, and we're here today with JoAnne Miller and Darin Sheffer from the Hillsdale County Historical Society, located in the wonderful town of Hillsdale, Michigan. Let's pick up where we left off, and welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Hi.
Let's pick up with more of the history of the county.
Okay.
JoAnne, I think you had something to add.
I do. Being the county seat of any county is a tremendous advantage. It brings people to the county courthouse, of course, for business there, and that makes a good deal for the rest of the town because they are then able to offer their services to the visitors. So in Hillsdale County, Jonesville was the first county seat. It was pretty obvious. They were the first platted town. They were right on the Chicago Road, and they kind of felt that they deserved to be the county seat. However, these young men who came to Hillsdale seeking their fortunes decided that they had other ideas. Now, keeping in mind, these guys were early to mid-20s, and many of them had been working since they were 12, 13 years old. Many of them didn't have the education. Many of them didn't have any kind of wealth except what they made themselves. But they were young and vigorous and courageous and maybe a little foolhardy. They weren't afraid to take chances. An informal group of these young men called themselves the Hillsdale County, and they had a plan to make Hillsdale, which is kind of in the middle of the county seat, even though Jonesville was the county seat at the time. They, first of all, started their town where our county fairgrounds are now, but then as newcomers came to the area, they tended to settle further north. And that's where this Hillsdale company decided that they would buy the land and plat the town of Hillsdale. In this plat, they have a beautiful section set aside for Courthouse Square, keeping in mind, of course, that Hillsdale was not the county seat.
Right.
Jonesville caught wind of this, and they were not happy. They decided what they would do in 1840 when the state legislature would vote on which city would be the county seat, was to create another town toward the center of Hillsdale County, and that would split the votes between that town and Hillsdale, and they called that town Osseo. Somehow, in this three-way voting, Osseo won the right to be the county seat. There was only one problem. They had no county courthouse, no buildings, no homes, nothing. And in 1843, the state legislature found out, probably with some help from the people in Hillsdale, and they awarded the county seat to Hillsdale, which quickly built a log cabin to serve as a courthouse on Courthouse Square. Now, it was a little squatty building that eventually burned, and unfortunately burned a lot of the county records with it.
Oh.
Yeah, that was really too bad. But the county courthouse square eventually had a nice looking second county courthouse. And then when that got too small, a third one was built in the late 1800s, and that still stands and is currently being repointed and brought up to code. Eventually, Courthouse Square had a school because there were too many kids to go to the little tiny schools around town. And it also had a jail, and it also had an outhouse for the benefit of those people in town who needed an outhouse. And that got to be something that wasn't very popular. There were another angry set of letters to the newspaper complaining about how it was being misused. By the way, we now have public restrooms inside the county courthouse. The school was built in 1847, but the growing population of school children needed more room, and in 1860, 4 ward schools were built. The jail, however, was left there on the county courthouse square until 1977 when it was moved to the edge of town.
Fantastic. I would love to tour that courthouse. Oh.
It's a beautiful building, Sean. It's, the outside, it's kind of interesting what we've learned of the building during this restoration process. It's been going on now for, is it 2 years?
Yeah.
So it's a very thorough restoration. And obviously, when a building built in 1898 is checked more closely in 2024, there's a lot of issues to be found. but they're doing a very nice restoration. It has a copper cupola and an upper dome, and all that's been repaired and replaced. But the construction of the building, I mean, I think if you asked any Hillsdale County resident what it was made of, they would have told you it was sandstone. But come to find out, with the restoration work going on, I drove by one day and saw that it's actually a brick building faced with the sandstone.
Okay.
So it's kind of interesting that it was not solid, but it is a beautiful building with the open second floor to look down to the first floor.
Yeah, nice.
Beautiful dome inside.
Did they leave any kind of time capsule in there?
The original time capsule is still in the cornerstone.
Good.
I recall going to the centennial celebration in 1998, and I believe they may have done another time capsule at that time that sits in a wooden chest, if you will, that is sitting inside the courthouse to be opened in 100 years.
Fantastic. So they haven't opened the original one from 1898?
Correct, no.
Wow.
The restoration of the building, it was never necessary to take the cornerstone out or do any work in that area.
Wow. Is there any plan to open it at any point?
I've never heard of any, no.
Wow. Oh boy, that's something for the future. Oh boy, gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah, I love to watch those on YouTube when you hear of a community that's, either found one by chance or by purpose. And it's always interesting when they open those up to see the condition of the contents or just what's in it in general.
No kidding. Wow. And to be involved in that, you guys are so lucky. Oh gosh. Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
hope whenever they do open it that the society is present and
Oh
gets
yeah.
to help.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Listeners there in Hillsdale County and Hillsdale Town, you guys need to be involved in that. Let me tell you. You guys need to get involved with your society there and be involved.
Yes.
That's
would love
so exciting. Oh my goodness.
May
So,
I add a couple of statements about the railroads?
of course.
Today, we have only a few freight trains that travel through the county without stopping. We've had excursion trains, special excursion trains, where people go to Coldwater and then come back on an older train with the nice coaches and everything, but no real stopping in Hillsdale anymore. And part of our old railroad beds have become rails to trails, which is part of the North Country Trail, which goes from North Dakota to Vermont. So it's really cool to be invited to be part of that.
We're lucky we have the 765, which is the nickel plate road steam engine that was restored by the Fort Wayne Historical Society.
Cool.
So they've been running excursions the last 2 years in conjunction with the Indiana Northeastern Railroad. So when that 765 came to Hillsdale 2 years ago, that was the largest steam engine that had been here since about 1955.
I saw that video.
It's a beautiful locomotive,
Yeah,
and
beautiful.
they have a beautiful consist as well. They have great old Pullman dinner cars or diner cars and the like. So it's neat to have that here in Hillsdale because it does give people a feel for what it was like
Absolutely.
75 years ago when there was 30 trains a day coming through Hillsdale.
Think how relaxing that is just to, get on the train, have a relaxing dinner, just, go
Yeah.
wherever and come back and just have a wonderful time.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very popular thing. I think when they put tickets up for sale, the tickets are gone very quickly.
Oh, yeah. I
It's
imagine.
a 3-hour excursion each way from Fort Wayne to Hillsdale, and then they lay over here and then return.
That's very cool. So I got to ask you, what challenges or opportunities do you face in safeguarding your town's heritage?
We had a situation which happened, I'm sure, in many towns where the false front became the thing to put on your buildings to upgrade them. I remember when my husband and I brought our young family here in 1973, they were just finishing taking those false fronts off. And we couldn't believe they had put them on in the first place because we have this truly lovely Victorian town. And people have taken great pride in keeping up their properties in the downtown Hillsdale area. The other little towns have buildings that are Victorian, but they don't have the consistency from one end of the town to the other, which isn't saying much for Hillsdale because it only has like 1.5 main roads. But it is lovely.
Absolutely lovely. Nice town just to walk in, you know.
Yeah, it's a very accommodating walking downtown. Obviously, you can walk around and look at the architecture, the buildings. You know, the downtown blocks. Most all of them have one of the original buildings from at least the 1860s in the block. We've lost some to fire and other disasters. In the 1860s, one of the buildings just collapsed,
Oh,
and we
wow.
have a CDV of the collapse photograph showing that. But the newer buildings in downtown Hillsdale are from the 1880s, so it truly is a Victorian downtown. Over the years, with different downtown events that the City Business Association has, the Historical Society has provided them a photo of their building, vintage photo of the building, and a short history of it, so they can place that on their counter or in the window for people to look at during the event.
Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Hey guys, can you please explore the roots of your society story? What's its history?
Absolutely, Sean. The Historical Society, as we had mentioned previously, has been around since 1965. So on June 28th of 65, around 30 local history enthusiasts met at Lewis Emery Park to create an organization that would help preserve and restore local artifacts, records, and buildings, anything that was part of Hillsdale County's history. So that was the beginning of the society. So from 1965 to 1972, all of the artifacts that the society had collected at that time were stored in the basement of the small lodge at Lewis Emery Park. And unfortunately, some of the items were stored with members, which is never a good thing. So in 1972, the Hillsdale Fair Secretary, Wayne Nichols, proposed a 99-year lease of the little white house on the hill at the county fairgrounds. This little building was built by the fair in 1869 and had served as the office and a meeting space for the fair. And at different times, it also housed caretakers and other things related to the fair. So in 1972, we finally had a small building to start showing off those artifacts to the residents of Hillsdale County. And the society basically grew from there. So in 1987, the president of the society at that time, Phil Wilson, got a hold of Bob Evans Farms because on their property here in Hillsdale, Bob Evans has a processing plant. And on that property was what we now call the Will Carleton Poorhouse. And Phil Wilson negotiated with Bob Evans to deed 1.9 acres of the property, including the poorhouse and the barns, to the Hillsdale County Historical Society.
Oh, cool.
So from that point, we really had our first museum that was actually all owned and restored by the Hillsdale County Historical Society.
But not until all of the animals that had taken up residence there were ejected.
Yes, the poorhouse was in very, very poor shape. It had been vacant for almost 20 years at that point. Architectural features of the building had been removed. The animals, as JoAnne mentioned, had moved in. So the building was really just a shell of what it was. So in 1987, the same year, they started the process to get a grant to help restore the poorhouse. And we were lucky to get a very large grant from the Herrick Foundation. And that was the catalyst for the restoration of the property. So in 1989, the main floor was finally open to visitors after countless hours of volunteer, as we are a completely volunteer organization, volunteer work and restoration of the property. Over the years, we added our general store building, which was actually the connecting roof from the two silos on the property. One silo was removed, and they saved the roof of the cover that connected the two, and built a small building out of that. So we now call that our general store. That's where we sell our baked goods and other fundraising type items to help raise money for the society.
Cool. That building looks really good today.
It's a beautiful complex. We're very happy with how it looks now. Just in the last few years, actually, we've put a lot into it to bring it to where it looks now.
And the Will Carleton Poorhouse and Museum is now the home of the Hillsdale County Historical Society, right?
Yes. The fact that we now have a complex is really important.
I mean, although it had been abandoned for 20 years, the poorhouse was still in pretty good condition. Obviously, after years of neglect, it needed the roof replaced.
Yeah.
Everything inside, the plaster had obviously, the building was unheated for all those years, so the plaster had fallen. But the construction of the building itself, the walls are 18 inches thick.
It was structurally sound.
Structurally sound, absolutely. And even the tuck point from, 130 years before, at that time, it was still in very solid shape. All that, of course, was restored during the restoration process in the early years. And we've since had a local mason that has retucked the building. Obviously, that is something that erodes over time naturally, but they restored the tuck doing the original V-shaped tuck method that was used originally. So if you go look at the building, the tuck point actually comes out to a point in between each line of the stone.
Oh, very cool. And yeah, you can see that if you go to your map app and just zoom in, you can see that very clearly that is a beautiful cobblestone building.
It really is. There's only 3 of the cobblestone buildings left in Hillsdale County, as far as I'm aware, and they're actually all within a few mile radius of the poorhouse building.
Wow.
The building of the cobblestone house that has become the Will Carleton Poorhouse was done by Erie Canal masons who had completed their work on the Erie Canal and then were moving west. Many of them were Irish, and in their own homes, they were familiar with stone buildings. And so as they moved west, they were building these stone buildings, some of them cobblestone buildings, in southern Ontario, northern New York State, and southern Michigan. Cobblestone buildings are another step in the stone building situation. They are far more challenging because they use similarly sized stones in lines with that mortar between that kind of comes out. They are only a facade because it's not a strong construction, and they need to have limestone quoins at the corners and above the windows and the doors to give them strength. And that the real strength is that 18 to 21 inch rubble wall that is all the stones that were picked up in the fields that didn't fit that rigid size of stone that was necessary. It was really labor intensive and took 3 years to gather the stones. And it was a folk art, actually, and it really died out pretty fast because it just was not practical as far as getting a building up to live in. It was built by Isaac Vandenberg, and he had hired one of the Erie Canal masons to build that for him in 1853. Isaac was a real estate speculator. He was an innkeeper, a farmer. He was really an entrepreneur and a very sharp fellow, as we'll tell you about. Going now to the county farm and poorhouse situation, we have always had ways to take care of people who are less fortunate and can't take care of themselves. There was an original county farm and poorhouse in another area in Hillsdale County. The idea being that the poor keeper would plant the crops and actually to be the farmer, and he would take in enough food to feed everybody who was living in the poorhouse. for the year. If there were extras, those would be sold, and then the county would have that money. The poor keeper's wife would take care of the paupers, as they were known. They were people who were unable to be taken care of by their families. There were children. The youngest person that we have found in the supervisor's notes that we have was 5, and the oldest in her 80s. There were probably women who were pregnant without being married who were sent there to have their babies.
Mm-hmm.
People were in and out. A lot of them stayed and died in that house. We have one marking on the census of 1860 that shows siblings who are 7, 8, and 9 who were abandoned. And then we have another situation where there are a couple of siblings whose parents died within 2 weeks of each other. So they were maybe kept there at the county farm and poorhouse until relatives could pick them up. But there also were what they called idiots and insane. And trying to put myself in the position of the farmers at that time. You are working from dawn to dusk if you're a farmer or a farmer's wife or the farmer's children. And there's just not a lot of extra time to take care of people who need care. So I suppose in some cases it was just the only answer to put your relative into the county farm and poorhouse. So back to Isaac Vandenberg. He became a member of the county supervisors, who are the county commissioners today, and he was assigned to be one of 3 supervisors of the poor. The year before he came on the county supervisors, the county had been dithering about whether or not the first county farm and poorhouse should be replaced. Somebody had gone through the second floor, and so it was obviously the home was not in good shape. But once Isaac Vandenberg got on the county supervisors and was assigned to be a supervisor of the poor, things started to move very fast. The people decided on the people who were the supervisors decided that they had requirements for a new poorhouse, which they absolutely had to have. It should be 2 stories. It should have a cellar to store food. It should be made of brick or stone. And lo and behold, Isaac Vandenberg had just built a home like that. And he was willing to sell his home to the county for the second county farm and poorhouse in 1854, a year after he had moved in, for $2,000. And then he would get the original county farm and he would replace the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was very charitable. He just built his house, just moved in, and he's willing to sell it to the county.
Well, yeah, I guess that's what an entrepreneur does, huh?
Yeah. Wow.
Sure, a profit was to be made as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah.
He made nice money if he got $2,000 for that.
Wow.
So Will Carleton came into this story really as a child. He grew up in Hudson, and he was from a rural family. He worked very hard on the farm, as he was expected to do, but he loved learning. To all intents and purposes, he was a gifted child with a prodigious memory. And he, at one point in his adulthood, looked back and he said, I remember going to school was like 5 minutes to get there, and it took me 2 hours to get home. He loved to go to school. His family went to the laying of the cornerstone at Hillsdale College, and Will announced at that time that he was going to go to that college. And he did indeed go, but he had to return home after his brother joined the Union Army, and Will's help was needed on the farm. He taught school, he helped on the farm, and he continued to study because that really was his life. When he was at Hillsdale College, he would go for treks around the county. And one day he saw the poorhouse in the distance. He was curious about it and walked over there just to see what it was. He returned many times after that to talk to the people who lived there, really to listen to them. Will, as a child, wrote poetry. And as an adult, he made a name for himself, a big name for himself as a poet. He wrote Over the Hill to the Poorhouse in 1872, along with another poem called Betsy and I Are Out. And it really was the time when people began to take notice of him. He wrote very accessibly. He wrote in dialect. His stories were compelling. There was humor. When he wrote Over the Hill to the Poorhouse, he said it wrote itself because he had talked to these people about how they arrived there, why they were there. The 21-verse poem tells about a woman who's taken to the poorhouse because none of her 6 children can take her into their home.
Oh.
In later life, Will said that after he wrote that poem, many supervisors of the county farms and poorhouses wrote to him, telling him that after his poem appeared, they had a lot of relatives come to take their relatives home, take care of them at home. Will Carleton toured the country, giving presentations, earning up to $100 a night, which was unheard of. And he became the unofficial poet laureate of Michigan based on his popularity. In 1919, the Michigan legislature passed a public act, and they required teachers to teach at least one of his poems to their students on October 21st, which was Will's birthday. And it was officially named the Will Carleton Day in Michigan. Very few people today know who Will Carleton is. However, we have a Will Carleton school. It's a charter school here. We have a road, and there may be other places that are called Carleton simply because it's part of our history, even if we don't remember what the history is.
Is there still a Will Carleton Day?
Oh, it kind of faded away.
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, these things happen. I remember when I was teaching in middle school, all of a sudden, for some reason, I found out that I was supposed to be doing this on October 21st. And I thought, well, that's kind of cool. So we looked up some of his poems, and that's when I fell in love with Will Carleton. I love his poetry.
Wow, cool. I'm going to go and look at that poem and any of the others. Over the Hill to the Poorhouse. That's cool. Thank you for
And
all that.
he wrote a follow-up to that. It was Over the Hill from the Poorhouse. One of her children had been put into jail. And of course, he couldn't take her because he was in jail, but he was the one who came and got her and took her home.
Good. Okay, well, thank you for that history. That's fantastic.
The only thing I'd like to add, Sean, that in 2020, the Society had acquired our 1931 Seagrave fire engine. Well, it's actually a pumper, but we call it the old fire engine. And word got out in the community. We had a fundraiser to help bring that fire truck back to Hillsdale. And after we had acquired it, it just so happened that a local family who's had a sister who was a member of the society had heard about our plea to try to find a house for the fire truck. And they ended up donating what we now call our new barn museum to house the Seagrave fire truck.
Cool.
So that was added to the poorhouse complex, is what we call it, in 2020. The construction was put off by the pandemic for a few months, but we have a beautiful new building there that was donated to the society, which we'll be forever grateful.
That is so
now
nice.
we have a place where we can display all of the collections that we have that were just in our basement.
Oh, yeah.
Because we didn't have room to display them in, and of course during the fair, our Fairgrounds Museum, we could display them for that week. But now we have a lovely place to display so many of our neat things.
Oh, that's wonderful. Plus, you've got that nice big field in the back there of the poorhouse.
Yeah.
You can have events and things like that.
Yes, we do.
Very cool. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt JoAnne and Darin, but it's time for us to take a break for a few minutes.
All righty.
Okay.
All right. Listeners, we'll be right back.
Looking for a fun and enriching way to spend your weekends? look no further than the Hillsdale County Historical Society. Join us for a year-round celebration of history and community at our exciting events, guaranteed to delight visitors of all ages. Start your engines and mark your calendars for our annual motor car exposition, where vintage cars and classic automobiles take center stage. It's a spectacle you won't want to miss. Get ready to soak up the sun and enjoy family-friendly entertainment at our annual Will Carleton Farm Festival. From live music to local artisans, there's something for everyone to enjoy. Step right up and experience the thrill of the annual Hillsdale County Fair. With carnival rides, delicious food, and exciting exhibits, it's a tradition that's been bringing smiles to faces for generations. And don't forget to join us for a festive celebration at our Christmas open house, held at the historic Will Carleton Poorhouse. Experience the magic of the season with holiday baked goods, decorations, Mr. and Mrs. Santa, and warm cider. Look them up on Facebook at Hillsdale County Historical Society or visit the website at www.hillsdalehistoricalsociety.org to stay updated on all the upcoming events and learn how you can get involved. Have questions or want to learn more? Send an email at hillsdalehistoricalsociety@gmail.com. Whether you're a history buff, a car enthusiast, or simply looking for a good time, the Hillsdale County Historical Society has something for everyone. Come make memories with us and experience the best of Hillsdale County history at the Hillsdale County Historical Society's events. We'll see you there. Hillsdale County Historical Society, where the past comes to life and memories are made.
And here is the famous 1872 Will Carleton poem that JoAnne spoke of, entitled Over the Hill to the Poorhouse.
Over the hill to the poorhouse, I'm trudging my weary way. I, a woman of 70, and only a trifle gray. I, who am smart and chipper, for all the years I've told, as many another woman that's only half as old. Over the hill to the poorhouse, I can't quite make it clear. Over the hill to the poorhouse, it seems so horrid queer. Many a step I've taken toilin' to and fro. But this is a sort of journey I never thought to go. What is the use of heapin' on me a pauper's shame? Am I lazy or crazy? Am I blind or lame? True, I am not so supple, nor yet so awful stout. But charity ain't no favor, if one can live without. I am willin' and anxious and ready any day to work for a decent livin', and pay my honest way. For I can earn my victuals, and more too, I'll be bound. If anybody only is willin' to have me round. Once I was young and handsome, I was, upon my soul. Once my cheeks was roses, my eyes as black as coal. And I can't remember, in them days, of hearin' people say, for any kind of reason, that I was in their way. 'Tain't no use of boastin', or talkin' over free, but many a house and home was open then to me. Many a handsome offer I had from likely men, and nobody ever hinted that I was a burden then. And when to John the First was married, sure he was good and smart. But he and all the neighbors would own I done my part. For life was all before me, and I was young and strong, and I worked the best that I could in tryin' to get along. And so we worked together, and life was hard, but gay, with now and then a baby for to cheer us on our way. Till we had half a dozen, and all growed clean and neat, and went to school like other, and had enough to eat. So, we worked for the children, and raised 'em every one. Worked for 'em summer and winter, just as we ought to have done. Only perhaps we humored 'em, which some good folks condemn. But every couple's children's a heap, the best to them. Strange how much we think of our blessed little ones. I'd have died for my daughters, I'd have died for my sons. And God, He made that rule of love, but when we're old and gray, I've noticed it sometimes somehow fails to work the other way. Strange, another thing, when our boys and girls was grown. And when, exceptin' Charlie, they'd left us there alone, when John he nearer and nearer come, and dearer seemed to be. The Lord of hosts he come one day and took him away from me. Still I was bound to struggle, and never to cringe or fall. Still I worked for Charlie was now my all. And Charlie was pretty good to me, with scarce a word or frown, till at last he went a-courtin', and brought a wife from town. She was somewhat dressy, and hadn't a pleasant smile. She was quite conceity, and carried a heap o' style. But if ever I tried to be friends, I did with her, I know. But she was hard and proud, and I couldn't make it go. She had an edication, and that was good for her. But when she twitted me on mine, 'twas carryin' things too fur. And I told her once, afore company, and it almost made her sick, that I never swallowed a grammar, or arithmetic. So 'twas only a few days before the thing was done. They was a family of themselves, and I another one. And a very little cottage one family will do, but I never have seen a house that was big enough for two. And I never could speak to suit her, never could please her eye, and it made me independent, and then I didn't try. But I was terribly staggered, and felt it like a blow, when Charlie turned agin me, and told me I could go. I went to live with Susan, but Susan's house was small, and she was always a-hintin' how snug it was for us all. And what with her husband's sister, and what with children 3, 'twas easy to discover that there wasn't room for me. And then I went to Thomas, the oldest son I've got. For Thomas's buildings cover the half of an acre lot. But all the children was on me, I couldn't stand their sauce, and Thomas said I needn't think I was comin' there to boss. And then I wrote to Rebecca, my girl who lives out west, and to Isaac, not far from her, some 20 miles at best. And one of 'em said 'twas too warm there for any one so old, and t'other had an opinion the climate was too cold. So they have shirked and slighted me, and shifted me about. So they have well nigh soured me, and wore my old heart out. But still I've borne up pretty well, and wasn't much put down, till Charlie went to the poor master, and put me on the town. Over the hill to the poorhouse, my children dear, goodbye. Many a night I've watched you when only God was nigh. And God'll judge between us, but I will always pray that you shall never suffer the half I do today.
Welcome back to Preservation Oaks. I'm your host, Sean Thomas Radcliff, and we're here today with JoAnne Miller and Darin Sheffer from the Hillsdale County Historical Society located in Hillsdale, Michigan. Let's pick up where we left off, and welcome back, JoAnne and Darin.
Hi.
Guys, I want to give the contact information real quick for the society. The website is www.hillsdalehistoricalsociety.org. You can find the society on Facebook at Hillsdale County Historical Society. Just look for that in the search bar. Their email is hillsdalehistoricalsociety@gmail.com. You can mail them at P.O. Box 306, Hillsdale, Michigan 49242. The Will Carleton Poorhouse and the home of the society is located at 180 North Wolcott in Hillsdale, Michigan 49242, and it's open for special events and for arranged tours. The Little White House on the Hill is located at the Hillsdale County Fairgrounds at 115 South Broad Street, Hillsdale, Michigan 49242, and it's open during the Hillsdale County Fair during the last week of September. That all sound correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Guys, can you kindly share with the audience an overview of the communities you serve, the demographic makeup of your membership, and the mission and objectives of your society?
Yes, we serve the entire Hillsdale County area. Obviously, there are quite a few small communities in Hillsdale County, being such a rural county. There's 3 or 4 that have their own historical societies, but under the Hillsdale County Historical Society, probably 95% of our membership is local to Hillsdale County. We have approximately 150 members. As I said, most are here in Hillsdale County, but we do have members in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Kentucky, Georgia, South Carolina. So they are spread out across the United States. Most of our membership are life members who have paid that fee for a life membership. So really, membership dues are not a large income for the Historical Society. I've been involved for over 20 years, and I've just remained as a single yearly member. So I pay my dues every year as kind of a donation to the society. On the whole, we survive on donations.
In our case, the members may not be giving us a lot of money, but they are giving us time.
Yeah.
And their energy. We have a very generous membership. The older people can't do as much as people who are not older, but we ask for cookies and people bring more cookies than we need. We ask for docents and we have no problem getting people to staff the Poorhouse or the Fairgrounds Museum.
Oh, that's good.
Or the Barn Museum.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
I love your baked goods. I saw them on a YouTube video. Oh my gosh.
They're always very, very good.
Yeah.
And this year, the society is conducting our first raffle. So I went through the process of obtaining the raffle license for the society. So this year, we're raffling a 1860s looking quilt. It's all handmade, hand sewed. So we're going to see how our first raffle goes.
Well, that's cool. When's that happening?
This was another donation from a member who just on her own contacted us and said, why don't I make a Civil War time quilt for you? We can raffle it.
That's very cool.
So we'll be selling the tickets for that at all the events up through the Christmas open house, which is in December. And we will draw for that quilt on December 8th at 3 p.m. So somebody should have that in time for Christmas if they wanted to give it as a gift.
What a nice Christmas gift. Wow.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful quilt.
That's very cool. Wow, good luck with that.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we also do on our Facebook page, there is the shop now at the top of the page. That will take you to a PayPal link. We do accept donations via PayPal as well.
I can't wait till you have baked goods for sale.
We'll see if we can ship them out to you.
No kidding. Can you imagine? Oh my goodness. I'll order those in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Wow, very cool. What are your membership levels?
Well, a single member is $12. Families $15. Life membership is $125. Life senior membership $75. And a business and or professional is $20 per year.
Okay, very cool.
The board itself is a younger board. We have one board member who is retired. The rest of the board are all still working. But obviously, we all have a great interest in Hillsdale County history.
All right.
The mission of the society is to preserve, advance, and disseminate knowledge of the history of Hillsdale County, Michigan.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Guys, what's coming up on the horizon for the society? Are there any upcoming exhibitions or events that the community should look forward to?
Yes, there is. We're having our third annual motor car exposition on June 8th from 9 to 2.
Cool.
There's a $10 entry per vehicle. So this is obviously a car show. We do award trophies and prizes. And as with all of our events, this is free to spectators. The society is never charged for any of our events to have people come enjoy and learn the history of Hillsdale County.
I've seen some of the videos. It's a pretty cool event.
It is. Yeah, it's steadily grown as, the last 2 years. It increased each year, and we look forward to having more cars this year.
Cool. Are there any qualifications for what's considered a classic car, or could I take my 1970 car down there?
Yeah, we welcome anybody. Obviously, the event is a nice fundraiser for the society at $10. We call it a donation since we're not allowed to charge.
Yeah.
But we do well with the $10 entry fees, and we welcome anybody who wants to come be a part of it from anywhere in the tri-state area.
So if I've got like a car that I've really worked on, I really am proud of it. It's one of those cars that hops up and down and does that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I'm really proud as a mechanic. I can bring it in.
Yes, we would welcome any vehicles.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. That's great.
After that, we do have our Will Carleton Farm Festival, which will be on August 3rd this year. It's always the first Saturday in August. That is a free event as well.
What goes on at that?
Well, we have a collaboration with the Center Adams Antique Power and Equipment Club, and they have the most wonderful old tractors, and they putt in from all over the county. I hear them going by my house, and I look out and I see this line of cars behind them being very happy. They're all smiling at this little old tractor. And we've had a thresher there, and then we have Alamo engines also. Alamo engines were built in Hillsdale County for a long time.
Very nice. Do you have music at these events?
Yeah, we do. We have either a strolling minstrel, or we've had dulcimers. Depends on the year.
Yeah, very cool. Now, can you tell us a couple of funny or interesting stories from your society's history?
Oh, yeah. Potter's Field. Now, Potter's Field is a place where people who did not have enough money to be buried, or babies who died, as people were passing through. They just didn't have enough money for the burial. And usually there were in public cemeteries where it was set aside, land that wouldn't be used for anything else. Very unusual to have a private cemetery have a Potter's Field, but our Oak Grove Cemetery does. And the cemetery was starting to prepare for additional land for burial spots. And totally unmeaning, they pushed fill dirt into an area where our Potter's Field had been, and they buried 3 of the only showing 8 markers. Over the years, woods had grown up, and the original gate had been taken down and thrown into the woods, and there was poison ivy all over the place. And the Historical Society really sees itself as a service organization. And when we realized that a lot of people weren't aware of this, we got a grant, because that's how we do big projects. We can keep the lights on and the heat on with our small donations and our money from our events that's donated, but we just can't do big things. So we got the grant, and we put up a small gate kind of a thing, and then we paid for a monument, and on that monument we had the 50 names that we knew were people buried there. Not all names, sometimes it was just baby or unknown. And we were quite aware that the proper burial was important to people at that time, and probably they didn't have a proper burial.
Mm-hmm.
And it really bothered me personally that these people had not been buried with the respect that they were due. And not a crime to not have money. So we, after we put in the monument, we put in the fence, and we invited people to come to a memorial service. And we had lots and lots of people there. And two of our area ministers conducted a funeral service with singing and everything. And it ended with the ashes to ashes and dust to dust. And it was incredibly moving. It's probably one of the least known things that we've done, but I think it was one of the most important.
Absolutely. God bless you. That's fantastic. Fantastic. What a caring society. Wow.
We are.
Wow, that's amazing. What are some of the most memorable moments or experiences visitors have shared after visiting the society?
Our Fairgrounds Museum, the little white house on the hill, is only open for a week a year, the last week of September, when we have our Hillsdale County Fairgrounds open for the fair. And we have some different exhibits every year, but we have some things that are the same every year. And one of them is a chair that belonged to John Brooks, who was a veteran of the War of 1812. It was given to him by the GAR, which was formed after the Civil War. We have above the chair a picture of John Brooks sitting there in his Waldron yard on his 100th birthday. By the way, he lived to 105 and was hale and hearty to the end, probably. We have a steady stream of visitors coming in and out of our Fairgrounds Museum, and many see something and then they want to share their story. That's part of the fun of being a docent, either at the Fairgrounds Museum or at the poorhouse, the stories that we get to hear. In 2012, a man named Richard Cast came from out of state. He'd never been to the fair. He came into the museum. He was looking around, and all of a sudden, he stopped dead in front of the picture of John Brooks. And he said, "That's my great-great-grandfather." And he gave us all the information about how he was related to John Brooks. It gave, to this day, telling that story, I get goosebumps.
Wow. That's a fantastic story. Wow. So you got a thing going on with chair. You got Bobby's chair, and now you've got this other chair.
We do have quite a few chairs.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. Your county's going to be known for chairs.
Yeah.
Hey, what kinds of exhibits are in the new barn that you were talking about?
In the new barn, we have displayed the 1931 sea grave, for which the building was donated for, but also in display in that building are what we call the Pioneer case, which includes the Allen sugar box and the Allen Bible and the Bobby's chair and other artifacts that are related to the Pioneer families. We also have a nice display of Civil War items, Native American artifacts, items from the Hillsdale County Fair, which started in 1850, as well as our presidential documents, and there are several cases that are changing displays. So at each event we do, there will be something different for visitors to see.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Can you tell the audience about any current initiatives or needs of the society that you want the people of your area to know about and support?
Yeah, absolutely, Sean. On the poorhouse grounds is the old barn. So we've talked about the new barn that was constructed in 2020, but on this property is the original timber framed barn. It's not original to the property itself. It does not date from the time that the poorhouse was constructed. I would say the barn was built around the turn of the century, around 1900. But the barn is in pretty tough shape. And we've held the barn together for the last 15 years with a system of chains to help keep it right. The barn was in just as bad as condition as the poorhouse when it was given to the society in 1987. At that time, they had a team of Amish local who came in and they put a new roof on the barn and did some shoring up and re-sided it. But the structure itself is not good. The society would really like to restore the old barn and get it in a condition to where it can be used as a place for exhibits. And a long-term goal would be to even have the barn as a rental space for wedding receptions, things like that.
Well, that would be great.
It would be really nice. So we really want to ask for the public support with donations and anything they can help us with to restore the old barn at the poorhouse. The Fred Meyer Corporation is building a new retail store in Hillsdale, and on that property was an old barn that had I'm sure you've seen over the years, the chew mail pouch tobacco.
Yeah.
Sign painted on the end of that barn. It was kind of a local landmark. It's between Hillsdale and Jonesville, so you couldn't miss it on the main road. There was a big community push to save the mail pouch sign, and we were lucky that the Meyer Company, actually at their expense, removed the mail pouch sign painted on the end of that barn, and they donated it to the Historical Society.
Oh, cool.
So obviously we need to preserve that sign, and our goal is to, once the old barn is restored, we would like to put the mail pouch sign inside of that barn on one end to mimic how it would have looked on the exterior, but to have it safe from weather.
That'd be very cool.
So that is one of our goals that we're going to be spearheading a fundraising effort on. Recently, a member of the society passed away and left us a very nice gift. It's a nice seed money for this project. But when you're talking a building of this age and you're talking the timbers and structures and things that are needed to be repaired, it's not going to be an inexpensive
Do you have
project.
any goal in terms of fundraising or, any estimate of what it's going to cost?
Almost $50,000.
Okay, got it. So the public has something to shoot for.
Yes. Yeah, we're looking to raise approximately $50,000. We've received several quotes for getting the work done, and that's the area we're looking at.
Okay, fantastic. Maybe next summer.
We can hope.
We can hope. I'd like to provide listeners with the contact information for the website and the society. You can contact them at www.hillsdalehistoricalsociety.org. You can find them on Facebook at Hillsdale County Historical Society. Their email is hillsdalehistoricalsociety@gmail.com. You can mail them at P.O. Box 306, Hillsdale, Michigan, 49242. Their home is the Will Carleton Poorhouse, and that's located at 180 North Wolcott at Hillsdale, Michigan, 49242. And they also have the Little White House on the Hill, which is located at the Hillsdale County Fairgrounds at 115 South Broad Street, Hillsdale, Michigan, 49242. That's open during the Hillsdale County Fair during the last week of September. JoAnne, Darin, how does the society interface with state, county, and regional societies in the area?
We have shared our museum space at the fairgrounds during the fair with the other societies in the county, and one of them will be putting a display in this coming fall. But our strongest affiliation is with the Mitchell Research Center. That's where we go when we need to research county history, and we consider the Mitchell to be the other side of our coin. They have the paper and we have the stuff. Doesn't mean we don't have some of the documents and they don't have some physical things at the Mitchell Research Center. But this is an organization that started in one room in the old Mitchell home, which became a library. Charles Mitchell was one of the town fathers, and he left his home to the city for the use of anything but a jail after he and his wife died. And when the library moved next door to a one-floor situation so that people could get in easier who were handicapped, the Mitchell Research Center became three floors of really spectacular research. And you can just about get anything. Some of the best stuff is they have a list of the first landowners in Hillsdale County, and they have plat maps starting in 1857, newspapers from all over the county on microfilm. course, birth, marriage, and death books. They have an extensive vertical file that's sorted by township and family, city veterans, and some with specialties. Many family genealogies. When we have transcribed the Civil War letters that we've been given, Darin and I have also copied those transcriptions and stored them at the Mitchell for other people to see. And then they have a lot of scrapbooks that have been assembled by theme. It is a priceless treasure in this county.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Guys, what kinds of records or historical artifacts has the Society received as donations from the public?
Boy, I think some of our best and our favorite donations have been archives of Civil War letters of local soldiers. We've been very fortunate to have received these and to be entrusted with the care of them. Obviously, these have been in family hands for the last 150 plus years. And to be trusted with those, it's quite a thing. And so over the years, JoAnne and I have transcribed all of these letters and put them out on our website. And we've had scholars, Civil War scholars from all over the United States, probably further than we even know, that have accessed these letters and done research from them. So it's very nice to be able to have things like that and to share them with the world. One of my favorite archives, though, was the letters from the Fountain brothers. And it was Jerome and Hiram Fountain. They lived in the Pittsford-Hudson area. Hudson's in Lenawee County, the neighboring county. But they, living on the line, they did business in both counties. But Jerome was born in 1840 and enlisted in the 1st U.S. Sharpshooters on August 26, 1861. He ended up with malaria and ill health, and he died in Washington, D.C. in 1861. His brother Hiram also enlisted not too long after Jerome, and he died on July 2nd, 1863, on the second day of fighting at Gettysburg. Along with the archive of the letters that we received of these two men were photos, daguerreotype photos of the family. So we actually have pictures of Jerome and Hiram and their sisters and their brother. But that was the first archive I think we've ever received where I became really attached to these people, especially having letters from that time when they were in service and knowing that they had just months to live, both of them, and to see their pictures. It's really something to have an archive like that to bring history to light. They do have a memorial marker. Obviously, Hiram is in Gettysburg National Cemetery. Jerome is buried at the Soldiers and Airmen's Home National Cemetery in Washington, D.C. But their parents did put up a memorial marker for them in Pittsford Township.
Wow. What a time in our history, huh?
It sure was. Yeah. Hiram's last letter was written, quote unquote, at the top of his letter, upon the field. And it was on May 4th, 1863, and that was the Battle of Chancellorsville.
Wow.
At that time, he said I think the letter was 3 lines long. It's been 3 days of fighting, I'm unharmed. That was all he was able to write. And, not long after that, he was gone.
Yeah, it was a huge battle, too. Chancellorsville.
Yeah.
Gosh.
That was May 4th. He died on July 2nd.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. And another unbelievable archive that we were donated in June of 2022 was from a lady in Virginia, and her family hailed from the Hillsdale area. I'm sorry, I don't know how many great-grandfathers he was, but her grandfather, Eli Van Valkenburg, he was the son-in-law of Esben Blackmer, who donated the land that Hillsdale College sits on. Esben was a huge landowner in Michigan and a lumber man. But anyway, Eli Van Valkenburg married his daughter, and for a wedding present, Esmond Blackmer built Eli a house, and Eli and his daughter a house on College Hill. That house still stands and is owned by Hillsdale College and is used as their health center. She contacted us and said, I have a bunch of documents related to Hillsdale and Hillsdale County, and I would like to find a home for them. And she said, included in this are some presidential documents. Of course, it had my attention. Well, finding more information from her, Eli Van Valkenburg was appointed paymaster in the Army by President Lincoln on February 26th of 1863, and she had his appointment to paymaster signed by President Lincoln.
Whoa.
So, of course, I was very interested, but that wasn't all, because after Eli left the Army, he came back to Hillsdale, dealt with the land holdings and managing property for his father-in-law, but he was appointed postmaster of Hillsdale by Ulysses S. Grant in 1875. So after that, he was postmaster through 1886. So included in this archive are signed documents from Rutherford Hayes and Chester Arthur, as well as a letter on Executive Mansion letterhead from President Grover Cleveland, relieving Mr. Van Valkenburg of his duty as postmaster of Hillsdale on August 12, 1886. It's an unbelievable archive, and the family is a pioneer family. She was also related to H.B. Ralston, who started the Hillsdale Whig Standard in 1846, and she sent us the original subscription from all the city forefathers and pioneers of them giving Mr. Ralston little bits of money to start the Hillsdale paper. So this was just a trove of early Hillsdale history, and so we were just blown away when she decided to send that to the Historical Society. And those really are the jewels of our collection. And subsequently, in the last year, we received an email from the Williams County Library in Bryan, Ohio. And she said that they had received a local donation, and in it were some more presidential documents for the postmaster of Reading, Michigan.
Wow.
So in short time, we ended up receiving 3 more documents signed by Harding, Coolidge, and Herbert Hoover. So we had a very nice, within a year, collection of presidential documents. And we were very pleased that 2 grants that we applied for to the Hillsdale County Community Foundation were granted, and we were able to get 2 document cases to safely display these at our event.
Wow, fantastic. My
So it's really
goodness.
something, when a young kid comes in and you're able to say, Abraham Lincoln touched this and signed it. You're looking at something that Abraham Lincoln looked at.
Wow, plus all of those presidents that you
All of
named.
those presidents. Yes, they are all genuine signatures, and they're very special.
Plus through that timeline, you've got Abe Lincoln, you've got Grant, you've got
Yes.
Grover Cleveland, was it?
Yep.
Yep.
Cleveland, Hayes, Chester Arthur,
Oh my God.
and Warren Harding, Calvin Coolidge, Herbert Hoover.
Oh my
So
God.
I've been an autograph collector for a good part of my life. So being able to handle something that Abraham Lincoln touched never gets old.
I mean, Herbert Hoover was in the Depression.
Yeah,
You've got half the United States history right there.
we do. We do. From
Amazing.
1863 through the early 1930s.
Yeah. Wow. Amazing. That's
But we
treasure.
we would gladly accept any other donations of presidential documents.
No
if anybody.
kidding. Oh my God. That is fantastic. Oh, okay. Well,
Right.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
JoAnne and Darin, I just want to thank you for spending time with us today. All I can say about your society and your area of the country is wow. It's truly beautiful and historic. I'm so glad to meet you. It's just been inspiring talking to you and learning that you have the treasure of Hillsdale County in your possession and are preserving it properly on behalf of the citizens of Hillsdale County and, of course, Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. This was a
Thank you.
lot of fun talking with you.
It really was. We appreciate the opportunity.
And with that, we'll end our time with our guests, JoAnne Miller and Darin Sheffer. Listeners, please stay tuned for my comments and wrap-up, which is coming up next. Hey, thanks everybody for joining us on this insightful journey through the rich history of Hillsdale County, Michigan with our esteemed guests, Ms. JoAnne Miller and Mr. Darin Sheffer from the Hillsdale County Historical Society. JoAnne and Darin's extensive experience and dedication shine through their work at the Historical Society. JoAnne, a venerable member of the Society's board, brings with her 80 years of wisdom, while Darin, the curator and vice president, boasts over 2 decades of service. The contributions to the community are immeasurable, and we are truly fortunate to have had them as our guests. Exploring the origins of Hillsdale College in the mid-19th century, as recounted by JoAnne, provided a fascinating glimpse into the area's educational heritage. Moreover, learning about the Society's remarkable artifacts, including the original Moses and Mary Allen Bible and sugar box, as well as the chair crafted for Chief Bawbees, offers a tangible connection to the past, which everybody in the county is very lucky to have. The ongoing renovation of the county courthouse, with its untouched cornerstone time capsule, presents a unique opportunity for residents to engage with their local history. Joining the Hillsdale County Historical Society ensures participation in future endeavors such as the much-anticipated opening of this time capsule. Established in 1965, the Society serves as a vital guardian of Hillsdale's heritage. To support their noble cause, donations are welcomed. And indeed, we learned that the Society relies mostly on donations and volunteers for its well-being. There's a convenient option available through the Facebook page to make a donation. Exciting events such as the upcoming motorcar event and the Will Carleton Farm Festival promise delightful experiences for all. And this year, the Society is conducting their first raffle. They're raffling a handmade 1860-looking quilt. Raffle tickets will be sold throughout the year at all Society events. This exciting raffle will occur at the annual Christmas open house. Moreover, Darin's revelation of the Society's ambition to renovate the old barn into a multifunctional space speaks to their commitment to preserve history while embracing the future. This renovation is a priority for the Society. It'll mean that the Society and the community will have a wonderful space to have weddings, meetings, wedding receptions, and other events. And it'll be the place where the mail pouch sign can be stored and properly preserved and displayed. Please donate to the old barn renovation. The recent acquisition of a new barn museum made possible by generous donations underscores the Society's dedication to expanding public access to historical treasures. Similarly, JoAnne's account of the Society's efforts to restore the paupers portion of the local cemetery reflects their compassion and reverence for all aspects of community history. Darin's mention of the rare presidential document artifacts, including those signed by Abraham Lincoln, adds a prestigious dimension to the Society's collection, enriching the visitor experience at the Hillsdale Museum Poorhouse. As we conclude this episode, we encourage you to explore further and engage with the Hillsdale County Historical Society. Visit their website, follow them on social media, attend their events, and consider contributing to their noble cause. Together, let's preserve and celebrate the vibrant tapestry of Hillsdale's past for generations to come. Thank you once again to our wonderful guests, JoAnne Miller and Darin Sheffer, and to all our listeners for joining us. Okay, once again, the contact information for the Hillsdale County Historical Society, their website is www.hillsdalehistoricalsociety.org. You can find them on Facebook at Hillsdale County Historical Society. Their email is hillsdalehistoricalsociety@gmail.com. You can send them mail to P.O. Box 306, Hillsdale, Michigan, 49242. The Will Carleton Poorhouse and the home of the society is located at 180 North Wolcott, Hillsdale, Michigan, 49242. The Little White House on the hill is located at the Hillsdale County Fairgrounds at 115 South Broad Street, Hillsdale, Michigan, 49242, and is open during the Hillsdale County Fair during the last week in September. By the way, lately we've been asking our guests the question, what do you think the world will look like in 100 years? It's an interesting question, and our guests have interesting thoughts about this topic. We're thinking about doing a special episode on this topic and including listener responses to this question. So, if you'd like to comment and express your thoughts on what you think the world will look like in 100 years, please send them to preservationoaks@gmail.com. We'd love to see what you think, and thank you. All right, if questions occur to you and you'd like more information, please connect with the Society via the contact information provided. If you're a listener in the area the Society serves and you're not already a member, please consider joining and supporting the Society. I hope this information helps the audience understand how valuable the Society is to the community and what kinds of excellent services they have to offer to their members and the public. Go and get yourself some of those baked goods. They are looking wonderful. I can tell you the Hillsdale County Historical Society, located in Hillsdale, Michigan, is truly one of our nation's preservation oaks. All right, that's a wrap for this episode. Music used today is from Cymbalbird, Scott Holmes, Purple Planet, Gore Wizards, A Ground Tracks, Sound Roll, J Hunger, Sound the Limit, Crypt of Insomnia, and J Hunger X. Microstream Radio is a registered trademark. You can visit us at www.microstreamradio.com. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted by Microstream Radio. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere without the written permission of Microstream Radio. I want to thank everybody for listening. This is Sean Thomas Radcliff. We'll see you all next time on Preservation Oaks. And until then, keep on giving and keep on living the good life.